Kay Longstaff hit the water so hard it felt like the ocean punched the air out of her chest. For a moment, she could not breathe at all. Salt water surged into her mouth and nose as she fought to get her head above the surface. When she finally broke through and gasped, she spun in the darkness, searching for the ship that had been under her feet seconds earlier. It was already moving away. The cruise ship's lights looked like a floating city sliding across the Adriatic, bright rows of windows stacked above the black water. Somewhere on those decks, music still played and people still laughed, unaware that a passenger was now in the sea behind them. The engines never changed tone. The ship did not slow. It kept going, and the distance grew so fast that the lights began to thin, then shrink, then feel unreal, like something she had imagined. Then they were gone. Longstaff was alone in open water, surrounded by darkness in every direction. The Adriatic that night was relatively calm, but calm still meant constant motion. The swell lifted her and dropped her, and each drop brought water into her mouth. Her clothes were heavy and soaked. Fabric clung to her legs, dragging her downward. Every kick felt like it was fighting the weight of her own body, plus the weight of the water trapped in what she wore. She tried to shout, but the sound disappeared into the night. There was no answer. No spotlight swung back, no horn, no rush of a rescue boat. The ship had continued on its route between Italy and Croatia, and she was now nothing more than a small head in a huge sea. Panic came in waves, too. Morning coming and no one noticing she was morning coming and no one noticing she was missing. She pictured search crews looking in the wrong patch of water. The thoughts were brutal and they made her kick harder, and that made her burn energy she could not afford. She forced herself to slow down. Calm was the only thing that would keep calm, was the only thing that would keep her alive long enough to be found. She looked up at the sky to keep from staring into the empty horizon, and she tried to use the stars as something stable in a world that had suddenly become nothing but moving water. The temperature was not freezing, but it was cold enough to matter. The sea drew heat from her body minute by minute. At first, she only felt chilled. Then she began to feel it deeper, in her shoulders and hands, in the muscles that had to keep moving to keep her head above the surface. Time stopped making sense. Minutes felt like hours. The night felt endless. Her arms began to ache, a dull burn that slowly turned sharp. Her legs cramped, released, then cramped again. She changed her kick, tried smaller motions, tried to conserve energy. She discovered there was no such thing as rest. Any pause meant sinking lower until water lapped at her mouth and she had to fight back up again. She swallowed salt water. She coughed. She kept moving. Stings came in small bursts of pain. Stings came in small bursts of pain against her skin, unpleasant but manageable and strangely grounding. Pain meant she was still awake. Pain meant she was still fighting. Hours passed like that, one after another, each one stealing a little more strength. Else, keep your chin up. Do not stop, else. Keep your chin up. Do not stop moving. Do not let your mouth go under. Wait for daylight. Daylight will help them see you. Somewhere far away, the ship eventually realized a passenger was missing. Crew members checked what they could, reviewed the situation, and the vessel turned back. Authorities were alerted. A search began. But in the water, none of that felt real to her. The sea around her looked the same. The horizon was still empty. The darkness still pressed in from every side. All she knew was the work. Keep treading water, keep breathing, keep living. Her hands stiffened. Her shoulders felt like they were packed with sand. At moments, her thoughts blurred, and she caught herself drifting mentally, as if her brain wanted to shut down to escape the strain. Each time it happened, she forced herself back by taking a deep breath and kicking harder, just to prove to herself she was still in control. When dawn finally began to rise, it did not feel like relief at first. The sky shifted from black to gray, then to a pale blue that showed her the truth. There was no land, no ship in sight, just open water in every direction, smooth and endless, the kind of view that could make a person feel smaller than a speck. Exhaustion hit her like a weight. She had been fighting through the dark for what felt like a lifetime, and the daylight revealed just how alone she still was. Then she heard something that did not belong to the sea. A low hum, faint at first, carried across the water. She held her breath to make sure it was real. The sound grew steadier, becoming the unmistakable note of an engine. She turned toward it, lifting an arm to wave. Her arm felt heavy, as if it belonged to someone else. She forced it up again anyway. A Croatian patrol vessel was moving through the search area, scanning the surface for any sign of a person. The crew watched the water carefully, knowing how easily a head could vanish behind a small swell. They searched for movement that didn't match the pattern of waves. They saw her. The boat angled toward her and closed the distance. As it approached, Longstaff focused on one thing: do not stop. Do not go under now. Her legs felt weak and numb. Her arms barely had strength left to scull. She kept her face above the surface by sheer will. Gravity returned all at once. She coughed. Gravity returned all at once. She coughed and shook uncontrollably as they hauled her onto the deck. She could not stand. She collapsed where they set her down, gasping, trembling, still tasting salt in her throat. She had been in the sea for around 10 hours. Medical staff checked her and found her alive and coherent, battered by exposure and exhaustion, but still breathing on her own. The water temperature, combined with her constant movement, had helped delay the worst effects of hypothermia long enough for rescuers to reach her. She had endured the night when rescue was least likely, and she had lasted long enough for daylight and searchers to intersect in the same patch of sea. Behind the patrol boat, the Adriatic looked calm again, as if nothing had happened. But Longstaff knew what it had cost. She had felt the cold creeping into her muscles, the panic rising in her throat, the temptation to stop moving and let the water take her. She had refused, minute after minute, breath after breath, until help arrived. Thank you for listening to horrifying survival stories. Subscribe for more stories of those who faced the impossible and lived.